Texas primary runoff sees incumbent losses. A final rule is issued related to independent dispute resolution. And the president signs an executive order on vaccines. For the week of June 1st, 2026. From Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C., this is Health on the Hill, brought to you by Heart Health Strategies. I'm Matt Duckworth. Kicking off this week's episode with news from the White House, where President Donald Trump signed an executive order on Friday, acknowledging a recent U.S. Department of Health and Human Services scientific assessment on childhood vaccines as a guiding resource for the federal government. The assessment compared U.S. childhood immunization recommendations with those of peer nations, analyzed vaccine uptake and public trust, evaluated clinical and epidemiological evidence and knowledge gaps, and examined vaccine mandates. The executive order directs the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention to review the assessment and take any appropriate steps to update the U.S. childhood and adolescent vaccine schedule, while instructing the Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices to consider ways to provide maximum flexibility to parents and doctors through recommendations for timing and sequencing of the administration of routine immunizations. More news from the administration today, where the Department of Health and Human Services, Labor, and Treasury released the Federal Independent Dispute Resolution, or IDR, operations final rule on Thursday. The final rule addresses essentially all the areas the departments touched in the proposed rule, with some modifications. Updates to the IDR framework include requirements that health plans use specific claim adjustment reason codes and remittance advice remark codes on remittance advice to clearly distinguish whether claims fall under state or federal surprise billing protections, and submit information to the IDR registry to receive an IDR registry number that can be used to initiate open negotiation and initiate IDR. The departments did not propose specific ID card changes. On Friday, the Office of Management and Budget, or OMB, announced proposed revisions to its guidance for federal financial assistance. The proposed rule is explained as aiming to strengthen oversight and accountability across federal grants, cooperative agreements, and other forms of assistance. The notice identifies the following goals of the proposed revisions: ensuring taxpayer dollars are spent responsibly, maintaining compliance with law and policy, and holding recipients accountable for performance. The proposals also emphasize upholding equal opportunity principles throughout the award process and eliminating unlawful discrimination. Additional reforms include clarifying the regulatory status of OMB requirements, streamlining procedures for future updates, and reducing administrative burdens on grant recipients. Critics of the proposed rule argue that the changes are intended to control scientific research by requiring proposals to be consistent with the administration's priorities, restricting who's eligible for funding, and diminishing the role of scientific peer review. Comments on the proposed rule are due by July 13th.
Continuing threats of cyber attacks. Protecting patient information is bipartisan and essential to deliver modern care. I look forward to discussing how we can do that.
Senate Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions, or HELP Committee Chair Bill Cassidy, a Republican physician from Louisiana, has sent a letter to the CEO of Hims & Hers regarding a recent cybersecurity incident threatening the private health data of the company's customers. Senator Cassidy asserts that, quote, additional transparency is needed about what information hostile actors accessed, how Hims & Hers safeguarded protected health information prior to the incident, and steps that the company intends to take going forward, unquote. The letter poses a series of questions regarding Hims & Hers' cybersecurity practices and the data breach that took place earlier this year, requesting a response no later than June 8th. A bipartisan group of House lawmakers is encouraging the Trump administration to revise regulations related to animal testing within federally funded research. The letter specifically cites the case of Ridgeland Farms, a large-scale beagle breeding facility in Blue Mounds, Wisconsin, which holds a USDA Class A breeding license despite allegations of animal welfare violations. The lawmakers expressed support for directing USDA to automatically review a facility's Class A license eligibility in the event that the operator relinquishes an equivalent state-level commercial breeding license. The letter reads, quote, "We believe this should be a common-sense practice," and goes on to say, quote, "If a facility is cited for hundreds of animal welfare violations and forced to surrender state-level licenses, there should be an appropriate federal review process as well to help ensure absolutely no taxpayer dollars continue to prop up an entity that is engaging in inhumane and unethical treatment of animals." Unquote.
Used to engage with the Lyme community. And there were top officials in this agency who were saying that Lyme disease did not exist, who would dismiss patients as the symptoms as psychosomatic and send Lyme disease patients to psychiatrists, which you can't imagine a worse combination. These are people who
HHS Secretary Kennedy announced several initiatives this week aimed at addressing Lyme and other tick-borne diseases. The department aims to reduce the incidence of new Lyme disease cases by 25% by the year 2035 compared to 2022. Among the newly announced initiatives are a multi-million-dollar pilot program led by the CDC to, quote, "develop and deploy practical strategies to target and eliminate ticks on wildlife before they can spread disease to humans," unquote. Other initiatives include 3 new Lyme X innovation challenges totaling up to $2.5 million in prize funding, and a new alpha-gal syndrome program with the National Institutes of Health. The alpha-gal program would allow companies to provide promising products that could prevent individuals from developing alpha-gal following a tick bite to the NIH, which would support and fund clinical research to evaluate the effectiveness of the products. The announcement comes approximately 1 week after the House Committee on Energy and Commerce voted unanimously to advance H.R. 4348, which would reauthorize the Kay-Hagan Tick Act.
After a public service career lasting more than 4 decades and 18 consecutive campaign wins, tonight we've come up short in this primary runoff.
That was the voice of Senator John Cornyn, a Republican from Texas, who was defeated by Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton in the Senate Republican runoff election on Tuesday. Cornyn has served in the Senate since 2002, chairing the National Republican Senatorial Committee from 2009 to 2013, and serving as the Senate Republican Whip from 2013 to 2019. He's currently a member of the Finance Committee. Paxton had received the endorsement of President Donald Trump in the days leading up to the election. In related news, Representative Julie Johnson, a Democrat, was defeated by former Representative Colin Allred in a runoff race to represent Texas's newly redrawn 33rd Congressional District. Johnson has served in the House of Representatives since 2025, succeeding Allred, who unsuccessfully ran for Senate. Johnson is the first openly LGBTQ+ member of Congress from a southern state. Representative Christian Menifee, a Democrat, defeated Representative Al Green in the runoff race for Texas's 18th Congressional District. Green has represented Texas's 9th Congressional District since 2005. The 9th District was redrawn ahead of next year's election, prompting Green to enter the race against Menifee, who won a special election in January to serve out the remainder of the late Representative Sylvester Turner's term. Final news today, where Florida Democrat Representative Frederica Wilson has announced that she will not seek re-election this year. Wilson was first elected to the House of Representatives in 2010. She currently serves on the Committee on Education and the Workforce.
Good morning and welcome everyone to the organizational meeting for the 119th Congress.
And I welcome everyone to the first HELP Committee meeting of the 119th Congress.
Good morning and welcome everyone to the first meeting of the House Committee on Energy and Commerce of the 119th Congress.
The Finance Committee will continue its long tradition of addressing these matters in a manner that invites bipartisanship.
We end each week's episode with a call to order, where we lightning round congressional meetings and hearings in the near future that you need to know about. First, on Tuesday, June 2nd at 4 p.m., the House Rules Committee holds a meeting to formulate a rule in the fiscal year 2027 Agriculture, Rural Development, Food and Drug Administration, and related agencies appropriations bill. Second, on Wednesday, June 3rd at 10 a.m., the Senate Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions, or HELP Committee, hosts a hearing titled Protecting Our Children, Exposing the Dangers of Irreversible Gender Transition Procedures on Minors. Third, on Wednesday, June 3rd at 10:15 a.m., the House Energy and Commerce Subcommittee on Commerce, Manufacturing, and Trade convenes the hearing examining legislation to establish a federal comprehensive privacy and data security law. Fourth, on Wednesday, June 3rd at 2:30 p.m., the Senate Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs Committee gavels in a hearing entitled Plausible Mechanisms of COVID-19 Injections Causing Cancer and Attacks on Scientific Publications. Fifth, on Wednesday, June 3rd at 3:30 p.m., the Senate Special Committee on Aging holds a hearing to examine the human cost of dangerous foreign drugs. Sixth, on Thursday, June 4th at 10 a.m., the House Judiciary Subcommittee on Courts, Intellectual Property, Artificial Intelligence, and the Internet hosts the hearing Medicines and IP, Balancing Innovation and Access. Seventh, on Friday, June 5th at 8 a.m., the House Appropriations Subcommittee on Labor, Health and Human Services, Education, and related agencies hosts a markup of their fiscal year 2027 Labor, Health and Human Services, Education, and related agencies bill. And last, on Tuesday, June 9th at 11 a.m., the House Appropriations Committee hosts a full committee markup of their fiscal year 2027 Labor, Health and Human Services, Education, and related agencies bill. Thanks again for tuning into this week's episode of Health on the Hill, brought to you by Heart Health Strategies. For more information on this week's healthcare happenings in the administration and on Capitol Hill, you can visit our website at hhs.com and click on the news section at the top of the page. You can subscribe anywhere you get your podcasts, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and SoundCloud. Did we miss a story you wanted to hear this week? If so, email me at mduckworth@hhs.com, and we may include it in our next episode. Have a great week, and stay healthy.